Welcome to Sense of Self, a conversation series about reclaiming our narratives, where we dive deep into the journeys that shape who we are. I'm your host, Dr. Gauri Aragam.
There's no fear about leaving home and being out in the world by yourself. No, absolutely not. I was like, I'll be okay. It was more like being worried that if I leave home, will my parents be able to manage life? Are they going to be okay?
In today's episode, I speak with Hetal Vasavada. Many of you may know her as the creative force behind the beloved social media handle, Milk and Cardamom. She's a cookbook author, food blogger, and recipe developer whose mouthwatering recipes and heartfelt storytelling have built a vibrant community online. In my conversation with Hetal, we talk about what it was like to grow up in a bustling joint immigrant family where she was entrusted with the responsibility of helping her loved ones navigate life in a new country. But it was stepping out on her own, becoming the first in her family to go away to college, choosing a love marriage, and moving across the country that brought her to a turning point. She realized she could honor her roots while building a life on her own terms. In this conversation, we explore what it means to embrace independence, share your heritage with others, and pass on a legacy of confidence and self-assurance to the next generation. It is important to note these discussions do not constitute mental health care. Each guest has given their consent to participate, has had full control over what aspects of their journey were shared, and either currently engages in therapy or has done so in the past. So get comfortable, take a breath, and join us for another conversation about breaking cycles, finding hope, and reclaiming what it means to be yourself. This is Sense of Self. Let's get started. Would you mind sharing your full name and where you grew up?
Yeah, my full name's Hetal Vasavada, and I grew up in Bloomfield, New Jersey.
Do you have a sense of what your name means and or why your parents chose that name for you?
I don't know why they chose it. It's probably Rashi. It's probably oh yeah, we need a ha name and this is a good one. But it means loving and affectionate and happy and joyous. A joyous, affectionate person, which I think is pretty on point.
When did they tell you that that's what it meant?
They never told me. I learned because I went to Sunday school and we learned Sanskrit, and het means overzealous affection. The way I see it in my head is someone giving someone an extreme bear hug.
There's the physical and emotional, mental, spiritual version of that. And it feels to you that you encapsulate all of those dimensions.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in Bloomfield?
So it's North Jersey, not a lot of Desis, though most people assume Jersey is just full brown people everywhere, Patels everywhere. Not the case in North Jersey. We grew up in a joint household. So my grandparents lived with us at some point. My mom's got 6 sisters and a brother, and my dad's got 6 brothers and 2 sisters. At some point, we all lived together. It was always someone in the house. There was never a point where it was just me and my nuclear family in the house. Mm-hmm. Never happened. So it was busy. It was loud. I remember when my grandma lived with us, I remember hugging her and she was stiff. She didn't know what to do with herself. And I would hug her every day. I would force it on her. She had no choice because, I'm a little kid. She has no choice. And I remember as, I got older, I would hug her and she slowly, softened into it. I even remember telling my mom, she was dropping me off at school and all the kids, would hug their mom goodbye. And my mom would just leave me. She always laughs about this. She's like, I remember I dropped you off and you were like, why don't you love me? You never hug me like everyone else's mom does.
Your name literally means that sort of overwhelming love. So how was that type of love showcased in your house?
Cooking your favorite meal, cracking nuts for you, cutting fruit for you, plating your food for you, making your favorite food when you ask for it. That is the love language. Saving food for you.
Packing food for you.
Yeah.
All the different verbs related to food. When you say that there were that many people in your house, I can't imagine that was the norm in Bloomfield, New Jersey. So how did your community respond to that?
My neighbors called the cops on us because apparently you can only have so many people living in one house, and they would spy on us. I remember my parents telling me oh yeah, the neighbor called the cops and we have to be careful, and when you leave the house, just like make sure there's no one. Because there was a man sitting outside our house in his car. And I remember like this going on for months. Like you'd look outside the window and there'd be a man in his car watching our house to count how many people were coming in and out of the house. And the thing is, we weren't even breaking the rules of the township. That's the crazy bit. This only happened when there was a lot of kids. So we'd be out on the street playing or riding our bikes. And, you know, you have like those cranky old elderly neighbors. But the funny bit is my family literally won all of them over time. Whether it's by like grabbing groceries for the elderly neighbors or mowing their lawns, doing, you know, removing their snow for them, watching out for each other's houses. They've brought that Indian neighborhood mentality of looking out for each other very much into our little street.
Speaking of your parents, so what brought them to the U.S.? Like, what were they doing here?
So my dad came here because he was sponsored by his eldest brother. So my dad wanted to come to America. When he was 17, he found out from a friend, if your family's in America, they can sponsor you. So he had paid for his eldest brother's education and he became a pharmacist. My dad worked like in the city, like on the street since he was 9. So he asked his eldest brother, who was educated, like, hey, can you try to go to America and then sponsor me? I really want to go, thinking there would be better opportunities in America than in India, considering he was like a street kid for the age of 19. Yeah. This widow would open up her house to the street kids and he would sleep at this widow's house every night. They have cafeteria style restaurants where like you pay a monthly fee and they give you one meal a day. Like he would split those with friends. This man is wild. Like the stuff he saw as a kid, like he had one of his friends die in his arms when he was like 12. Like he's seen some stuff. And the fact that he's still such a positive human being is like beyond me, I tell you. Yeah. He's just a happy-go-lucky guy. My Becca ended up coming to America in the late 70s. And then in 85, he sponsored my dad and mom. And then I was born in 87. And then my dad sponsored a bunch of my other uncles. So slowly everyone started getting into America. And then like my dad's first job was like delivering newspapers. And my mom's first job was sewing American flags. And they worked so many odd jobs and blue collar jobs, warehouses and hard labor. And then eventually he was able to have some friends that were in the diamond industry from India that moved to America. And he was able to get a couple like jobs in the diamond industry here in America. And then he taught my mom the skill and trade, and they both started doing that.
So for you as Hetal living in Bloomfield, with all these people in your house, what did you feel like was your responsibility or role?
It was helping the kids Americanize. So when like my cousins rolled up wearing India's idea of what Americans dress like, and I'm telling my, boy cousin, you can't be wearing those tight jeans. They're going to make fun of you.
Yeah.
We got to find something else. You just can't be doing that. No, do not put oil in your hair when you're going to school. Not a good idea. They're going to make fun of you. Shorts are okay. If it's too hot, shorts are okay to wear. It's not that taboo.
So that was like your, like Hetal's social.
Yeah.
It's like the Hetal's finishing school for your cousins, like modern day. And these cousins were older than you too, right? Did they listen to you?
Some didn't. Some did. And the ones who didn't learned the hard way. I had one cousin that came and he had like, in India, like the boys wear pretty flamboyant jeans. At the time, it was like, rhinestone studded, tight, acid washed, black jeans, And I told him, I was like, don't wear those. They're going to say those are girls' pants. And he's like, don't tell me what to wear. And he came home crying because some kids said that he was wearing girls' jeans. And I'm like, I told you. I'm not saying these things to be mean to you. I'm saying these things to literally protect you because I know what kids are going to say.
Yeah, because you've been there. You've seen it. You've experienced it. So that then begs the question of what was it like for you growing up like, in your own school environment?
I was one of 3 Indian kids, one of which was so Americanized and so fair skinned. I didn't even know he was Indian until like middle school. And then the other one was like my cousin. So, and because of that, and he was a boy, I was just like, I don't want to associate. We ended up becoming best friends. And actually, we went from preschool all the way to college together. But it was just wild. Like, I got the hairy Hetal comments, being the hairy Indian kid. The what's in your lunchbox, which ended up actually working out in my favor towards like the end of elementary school. I remember like everyone saying, oh, your mom is such a good cook. Your mom made this? Oh my God.
So food ended up being, again, this way of your parents showing love, but then somehow, given your circumstances, it happened to be a thing that actually helped you connect with your peers.
Yeah.
Did you otherwise feel like you fit in?
No. My mom and dad, one, couldn't afford it, but nor do they know how like extracurricular activities worked. All these kids saw each other nonstop outside of school. Basketball, softball, little league, soccer, all that stuff. I had none of that.
Yeah.
So they had very deep friendship. Their parents hung out with each other. Parents were part of PTA. Their parents came to school field trips as chaperones. They were involved. Like all the immigrant kids, my parents were not as deeply involved. So we didn't have like a bond, I guess, like the other kids did. Came all the way into high school. I remember like I joined soccer and I left because I felt like the odd man out because these girls had been playing soccer together since they were like 3, right?
Yeah.
So they have their like, oh, we're going to go get smoothies after. There was no invite for me. It was almost like I was showing up, playing and leaving. So I ended up quitting. I remember my first birthday party that my parents let me invite school friends. And I was allowed 2 friends. And I was like so excited, but it was not the same. Like going to the other kids' birthday parties where it's just all school, like the entire class is there. And,
Yeah. Did you have a good sense of why this was happening? Or did you feel like it reflected on you personally somehow?
Oh, I knew why. My mom is afraid of people because they didn't speak English very well, right? So like communication is impossible.
Yeah.
They have these predisposed ideas and stereotypes of American people. There's also that Indian mindset of don't get too close to, you don't need friends. You have family. They're just going to use you.
There's different ways that this can go for people, right? I think there is one way where you can be clear that this is something that has to do more with your parents and their discomfort and their unfamiliarity with what's going on. There's another route where this can internalize and you can start to feel a certain way about yourself and you can start to buy in to the treatment that you're receiving from kids around you. Did any part of you buy into feeling socially isolated or different? Did you make any meaning of that felt like it was reflecting on you somehow? Or were you able to maintain that perspective of what was happening?
I found my best friend, like my person, when I was like in 3rd grade. I learned that your best friend doesn't have to be a classmate. And my family knew her family back in India. So like they also, like my mom was like, oh, they're safe people. Yeah, I'll drop you off at their house. That helped make it easier because I had access to her. That like my mom would hesitate 500 times before dropping me off to a non-Desi person's house.
You had this friend who, in some ways, it sounds to me, was saving grace might sound dramatic, but yeah, possibly saving grace given the greater context that you're describing, because you see it's like a reflection of you in some ways. And so it starts to like build legitimacy and you start to take yourself seriously and see yourself as real as opposed to other and like on the sidelines.
I also started going to Swadhyay when I was little. It's like a Sunday school. We all get together and it's like 50 to 100 of us. And it was a blast. I had such a good time.
You're getting at what I think I was wondering about, which is where did the community come from? And it doesn't have to come from what's immediately available to you geographically in your immediate town.
Yeah.
It's something that you were able to experience outside of, which to have that is so important so that your world starts to feel like it's bigger than just you.
Yeah.
And you on your own, which can be very lonely and very isolating. If your parents weren't speaking much English, it's safe to say that you probably also played a role in the lives of the adults in your family. What was that?
It was, hey, Hetal, can you write this check? Because they don't know how to spell the numbers portion. Or, hey, can you argue this is a wrong charge on my credit card bill? How do I sign up for this insurance? Can you make this doctor's appointment? Can you figure out how to fill out this tax form? There's that running joke about the scariest bit an immigrant kid could do is try to fill out their FAFSA and their parents like yelling at them in the background, telling them, you should know how to do this. Like, that was real. Like, my mom would be like, you should know how to do this. You were born here. You're American. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. They don't teach you this in school. I don't know what tax form you need for this. Like, I don't know. And this is pre-Google. I'm trying to figure this out.
It's like a built-in software that you came with at birth because you're American. So like, this is the American chip.
Yeah.
And these are like high order skills where adults born in this country have a hard time figuring this out. Signing up for insurance. I'm a doctor. It's hard for me to figure that out, right? Like, that's not something that is intuitive. Here you are, a kid figuring it out.
Executive assistant to not just my parents, but then whoever was living with us at the time too.
That must have built a sense of like agency and confidence in you as a kid.
100%. I knew I'd be okay living by myself. I'd be all right. I can make it work. There's no fear about like leaving home and like being out in the world by yourself. No, absolutely not. I was like, I'll be okay. It was more like being worried that if I leave home, will my parents be able to manage life? Like, are they going to be okay? Can my sister handle all that's coming her way soon?
You've talked openly about how you have ADHD, right? And I was thinking about that when I heard you share that elsewhere, because I think what people often miss is that ADHD can so often go undiagnosed in girls. We just know that as a fact for reasons by which the girls are just socialized in a certain way. They show different signs of ADHD when they're younger. But another thing is that when there's pressure on you for like livelihood and to make something work, when you are in this mode of survival, and not just your survival, but like your family's existence, that is a kind of pressure that also tends to put you in this mode of making it work, getting things done, being able to do. And I'm just curious, like, did you have any sense that there was any difficulty you had with focus, attention, follow through? Was that something you noticed when you were younger, when you were trying to get all this stuff done?
I definitely had a hard time academically because my brain would go faster than I could write. So writing was a tough thing for me. My English was like a wreck. I was in ESL classes as an American-born child. My brain is thinking faster than I can type or write. And then I have all these typos and no finished thoughts. And the other thing was I really sweat the small stuff, the details. And the only thing that helped was in 6th grade, my teacher caught the anxiety and the trouble, and she had me coming in early. So I would go to school an hour early and she would sit with me and we'd work on writing. And I remember her giving me she had a little calendar that had motivational quotes on it every day. And one day she got one that said don't sweat the small stuff. And she gave it to me because she's like, this is you. You need to stop sweating the small stuff. Because in my world, details were important. You forget to check off a box on the form, you might not get paid, in my head, the IRS is going to come after us. I messed this up. Oh my God, we're going to jail. There was an anxiety of everything must be perfect. That was a canon event for me, hearing that.
To have ADHD and to do these tasks, this is something I work with people on all the time, which is that it's just inherently, it's a difficult thing to do. And then as a kid, not knowing why it's so difficult, right?
Yeah.
Yet there's this immense pressure and the consequences are real world consequences, right? This isn't, you're not going to get a B on a test. Your parents might not get paid, right? It's just a different level of pressure to address that issue at a young age that most people don't have in that particular way. Was that confusing to you?
No.
That you could be so high functioning at home?
I was an average student. I wasn't a failure. I was a C and B kid.
Yeah.
With certain areas where I was an A. And those were anything that required memorization, I was in. Because I would disassociate from the world and I could memorize things and can make connections, you know? I had that memory palace, you know, up in the head. The things I struggled with were like reading comprehension, math. Because like until it clicks, I'm gone. I don't know what's going on in the world until I can find the pattern in it. Math ended up being one of my favorite subjects as I got older, because once I would find the pattern, I'm like, oh, I get it. The same rules. The things that I do not do well with is when there's no hard answer, like psychology. Absolutely not. Not good in those cases, because there's like 10 different answers that could be right to some of the questions. And I'm like, I don't like this. Like my parents, there was no pressure to be academically excellent from my parents because they weren't. I mean, my dad didn't go to school beyond third grade. Like they didn't know an A from an F. They were not doing homework with me. They were busy just surviving. I don't even know what doing homework with a kid looks like.
When you have a sense of confidence in yourself and you feel capable and you sort of know what you're good at, you kind of know the areas in which you may need some extra help or you're not as good at, like that type of acceptance, it just lifts some of the pressure off. And when you feel like that pressure is lifted a little bit on you in terms of who you are, it actually allows you to move through the world and face challenges in a way that can be more successful.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of what I'm hearing as you are sharing more and more about how you grew up. That's not to romanticize it. That's just to be very honest about, like, developmentally, despite what you may have been going through at home or at school, you still had this sense of ability. And I'm just curious, were you like a quiet kid when you were younger, or were you a bit more outspoken?
I was outspoken. Always. Very loud, outspoken kid. In school, I was quieter until maybe 5th or 6th grade. And then it just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. I just got scared to talk to everyone. And maybe it's just also the comfort level of being with the same kids for 4 years at that point, or 5 years. Middle school is when I fully reinvented myself. I got to middle school and I was like, I am going to be the person I am with my friends from Swadhyay in school.
Bringing the worlds together.
Yeah. Which was like witty, loud, cackling laugh.
Do you remember when you made the decision or what the context was?
Oh, like first day of middle school, when I realized like I didn't know any of the kids in my cohort. So as you're rotating to each classroom, you're with the same group of kids. And the whole year. I'm like, I don't know any of these kids. Sweet. I can be whoever I want to be.
It's like this was a chance to actually be different, quote unquote, in that environment and have it just be the new normal, it sounds like.
And the other thing was, it was way more diverse. I think we had someone from like every country. Like it was a very diverse school. I had like friends who came from Ukraine, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, like all Vietnam, like all over, you know, and I think we all bonded on the whole, like being an immigrant kid or first gen kid. And the kids that had been in like Bloomfield forever and their families have like, I don't know, deep Italian roots in the town, they still had so much of their Italian culture a part of their lives that they also meshed right in. Like everyone had something going on outside of school. Chinese classes, like Russian ballet. Everyone just really was very open to chit-chatting and talking and being friends.
I know you've talked about how you were the first person in your family to go to college.
Go to college, but also live far away from home. In my family, I'm the first to leave home and like move on campus and have a proper college experience.
And was that something that your parents were super into in terms of that idea? Or is that something that you had to really advocate for?
I advocated for it, but they weren't against it. Their whole worry was more like paying for it, right? So their whole thing was like, if you can get it paid, and I had gotten a couple scholarships. So they're like, if you can pay for it, then go for it. I wasn't going crazy far away. I was going to Philly. It was like 2 hours away.
You mentioned that there was a point in your college career where I think the recession happened, right? In
Yeah.
07, 08. And staying in college was actually came into question whether or not you could stay. So what happened there?
It was my freshman year. My parents lost their jobs and, funds were tight. So I ended up given an option to either come home and work, retail and help, or stay in school and I have to cover all my funds, everything. I'm talking textbooks, rent, everything, school fees. And the thing is, my parents don't have the best credit because they always had to have a certain amount of money to be able to sponsor a family. So they didn't have a lot of a deep credit line. I didn't either, being 18. So I ended up finding a restaurant job. I worked at night, 6 p.m. to 1 in the morning. I also petitioned my school to get out of the meal plan and the dorms because it was too expensive.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford it. And then I moved into an apartment that was $600 a month. And there's no heat. It had mice. It was basically, it was a slum lord situation.
Yeah.
But I made it work. And I moved and I was able to work with one of my kakas, my uncle. He co-signed a loan for me. And then I was able to get work study. And they made an exception for me so I could work a little bit more than what you're allowed. I took out total across undergrad and grad, $80,000 in loans. And then I paid it all back within 5 years after graduating.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So I was very on it.
Clearly, yeah. And I think you clearly had practice on how to be on it.
Yeah. It was eating extremely cheaply. I scrounged. I found my way. I figured it out.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about this blog that you had that was going on the side.
After I started working at the restaurant, and my best friend, she's Cambodian and Chinese mix, she introduced me to sushi. She introduced me to so many other foods that I never, my parents didn't take me out to eat. Mexican food for us was Mexican food that we made up. Enchilada casseroles and, Doritos nachos. My girlfriend and I would go out to eat all the time because Philly food was cheap and really good. And we would save our money and split a 3-course meal. The other thing is I was cooking a lot for myself. I got lucky. I got put into a dorm with a kitchen. I would cook full meals. I'd be all right, guys, I'm making lasagna tonight. And I needed a place to store the recipes so that I could go back and make it. So that's what my blog ended up being. It was not even for me to share with anyone else other than me.
It was your diary of this amazing explosion of food and flavor that you were experiencing.
I just used it as a fun outlet. I never thought I was going to go in this direction.
I mean, now you are married, you have a child. Did you meet your husband in the midst of all of this in school, or did that happen at a different point?
That I met him in grad school. He was at Duke, and my best friend, the one from 3rd grade, was at med school in Duke. And I would go down and visit her often because this was in the days of $25 flights via Southwest. So I would fly down to see her often, at least once every 2 to 3 months. And she introduced me to him, and we ended up going on a road trip with him at some point. And I was like, hey, he's okay. And then a few months later, we start chatting on GChat, which became the new AIM. He ended up actually telling me he liked me, and we started dating. And that was it. That's all it took. He within the month, he was like, I'm going to marry you. And I'm like, what?
You're like, did my parents put you up to this?
Yeah.
So had you been somebody who dated before?
I had not dated an Indian guy because they never showed interest in me. I was in a relationship for 3 years. The other relationship was almost a year. But at this phase of my life, I knew it was serious because, we're about to graduate. I knew the first question my parents were going to ask me as soon as I finished graduating is, so let's get you married. Mm-hmm. And everyone had an arranged marriage in my family with someone in India. And I knew that's not what I wanted. And I knew that was going to be a fight. That was going to have to be something that I'm going to have to fight my parents on, and like not just my parents, my entire family. But Root came in, laid down the law, told him he's not leaving, and they were just like sat, and they're like, okay, I guess this is happening.
Oh, with your parents, he laid down the law.
Sure did.
So you didn't have to even like make a presentation and be like, here are all the reasons why.
None. He was the one that went in and said, I'm going to talk to your parents. And he basically was like, listen, I love your daughter, but we don't want to get married right now. We're not, like, he was just graduating, and I was also just starting my career. We're not in a place to be getting married.
As you know, and as I know, in Indian culture and a lot of immigrant culture in general, that's not something that a lot of people feel like they have the power or the ability or the permission to do, because oftentimes you don't feel like you need the permission from someone else as opposed to permission from yourself.
Yeah.
And I think what I really appreciate about what you're describing is there have been times where you've actually had to explain to them and sit down with data and explain why you were making the decision you were making and why it was going to be okay.
An explanation was always necessary, which means I better have my ducks in an order so that I can defend my thesis to my parents.
Yeah. And did you have to do that for college? Like when you went away to college?
Yeah.
Is that something you did?
I was like, listen, if it doesn't work out, I will leave. I'll come back home and I'll go to Rutgers. It'll be fine.
What you're describing is a skill that most people want in their early, mid to high level employees. This is a real life skill. That kind of self-assurance is something that, again, like adults at any age have a difficult time really owning.
Yeah.
And definitely kids and adults who come from the Indian diaspora, let alone other diasporas, I should say. And so I appreciate you sharing this and showcasing how you did it, how you showed up in that space, and how you also built that confidence in yourself. In this case, some by necessity, right? And how that allowed you to actually make these decisions for yourself that were so different.
And it's like, even in a career change, right? Like quitting corporate to go into, it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is my plan. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back and I'll look for a job at a startup.
And what did you do? For those who aren't familiar with what you do now, what did that entail?
So I now work as like a cookbook author and food blogger and recipe developer. But when I first quit my corporate job, I had no idea what I was going to do in food. And there's so many jobs in food.
You just knew you wanted to be in food.
Yeah. Like, I think most people think like, oh, you're a chef. Like, you must own a restaurant. Like, that's the end all be all. I've seen it firsthand. I lived it. I don't want to do it again. Even as the boss, you know, I'm good. So I wasn't sure where I would end up. Initially, it was like, I'm going to start a cookie business. And I literally had strangers come in my home and like taste my recipes and tell me what they thought. And then Root was like, just apply for MasterChef and see how you work.
Your husband said, apply for MasterChef. MasterChef meaning like this reality show where you're on TV, competing with other people, cooking.
Yeah.
Which is like highly stressful. It's just, it's edited and developed to be a stressful situation. And you also paired that with you saying that you did not have confidence. And so those don't usually go hand in hand, you know?
Yeah, it was a test.
Yeah, to say more. What do you mean it was a test?
I wanted to see how I compare to other home chefs because my friends are going to tell me my food is good. So are my family. But I want to know what a stranger thought. The other thing is I didn't want to go to culinary school and take on more loans. I had literally just paid off my loans at this point. So I'm like, I'm not taking on any more loans for this. So what's the easiest, fastest way to get legitimacy? And I was like, okay, MasterChef. And if I'm really bad at this and they tell me my food sucks compared to the other people, then I'm going to go work at a food startup.
It was when you moved to the Bay that suddenly you felt this sense of ease, that one, you felt confident your family was going to be okay.
Yeah, it gave me time to focus. I was not in survival mode anymore. I had a partner that also worked for YouTube, so I was all right. I also had a real girl job. I had a real proper job that was consulting, making good money. I was doing well. I had a condo in like San Francisco at the age of 24. We bought it. Like, I didn't feel like I was like, oh my God, where's my next dollar coming from? What am I going to eat today? There's none of those worries.
Like, that is the worries that you've had since,
Yeah.
don't sweat the small stuff from 6th grade. Like, prior to that is when you were literally sweating the small stuff for survival
Everything.
reasons. And yeah.
No one to
so-
do stuff for. Am I forgetting anything that I'm supposed to do for someone else? Do I need to make these phone calls? None of that. Because when I moved to California, that all just ended.
What did you notice about yourself when you noticed that you were no longer in survival mode?
I don't get angry as quickly. I have patience. I'm not like panicking at everything or feeling anxious. I don't feel the need to like argue with people about stuff.
That ease often allows for you to just explore a different possibility. When you notice yourself being more at ease, was that surprising to you? Was that a relief to you? Was that kind of cool to you? How did you remember feeling about it, if you had any reaction at all?
I felt a little initially sad because I'm like, that's Jersey, that's me, that's a part of my personality, that's who I am. And now I'm happy about it because my emotions are more regulated. They're more at ease. I'm not heightened emotion all the time. Nothing's triggering. Like, I'm just happier. If I go home for too long, I'll see the anger and the anxiety and the annoyance and the, oh my God, just get it done. Like, I see myself falling down that hole and I'm like, oh, I don't like this.
You're no longer associated with some core part of who you are as Hetal from Jersey. It's just, this is a learned behavior that happens to come on when I'm in that environment, and when I'm not, and I'm not in survival mode, there's a different way I've also had a chance to practice being, which is actually, oh wow, it's pretty great for my health. And so with that context, right, now we're talking about you shifting gears, going into food, and some part of you felt like you had the privilege to be able to make that shift. You then felt steady financially. You felt that ease. That oftentimes is a pretty good recipe for being able to make that shift, and actually follow the Philly food girl kind of path that had been started, the seed that had been planted back then. And so, but I love how you said that you thought about it strategically and were like, okay, what is the best way to build credibility when I'm not going to be paying back loans for culinary schools? There's still that through line, right? And you're like, MasterChef. That is quite the leap to just do that out the door. Obviously, you'd been thinking about it. And you get on MasterChef, and what happens?
I keep doing well. I was like, oh, I did not think I was going to make it as far as I did, considering I didn't cook meat ever until the show. I did really well. And when I came off, I was then like, okay, we need to use these 15 seconds of fame and build a platform, build a following. How do I do that? Social media. Okay, cool. What is going to be my social media strategy? And then my idea was like, at that point, I'm going to use this to build a career as a freelance social media manager for food brands. And that's exactly what I did. So I ended up building my social media and my reputation, and then was able to get a bunch of clients here in the Bay that were restaurants and startups, and I did social media for them all the way up until the pandemic. And then when the pandemic started, most of these startups and restaurants got rid of marketing first. So then I applied all the skills that I was applying to their channels to my own channel. So I got to focus 100% on my stuff, and then that really took off. And that's just where I've been ever since.
Geez, so you've just been developing translatable skills since you were a kid, and that just continued as you got older. If you had to think of yourself now and compare yourself to Hetal from when you were, I don't know, in middle school, high school, in your younger days, how would you say you are the same, and how would you say you're different?
The same. I was always self-motivated. If I wanted to do something, I was going to get it done. I was going to make it happen. I'll figure it out. The way I'm different, I've become more introverted. I was the life of the party in high school. I was the one that's like, let's do this, let's do that, I was hung up on how I was perceived a lot too. Like, I went to school dressed to the nines every day. I wore heels almost every day. That is not the case anymore. I'm rolling up in a sweatshirt, barely have makeup on, like I just don't care as much about perception. What do they say? As you get older, the less fucks you give.
Yeah. Well, it's wild, right? Because you're saying perception doesn't matter in the same way to you anymore.
Yeah.
And you're saying that as somebody who's literally perpetually, your business is online and the perception of you and your business equates money, right? Like equates your livelihood. And so being able to be really clear on what of that matters and what doesn't is so paramount to the whole endeavor. If there's something from your experience that you want to make sure that people learned from, understood from, maybe didn't make the same mistakes from, what would that be?
I would say one thing for my girls is when you are older and you're no longer living on your parents' dime, you no longer need to be asking permission. You can tell your parents what you're doing out of respect, but don't continuously look to your parents for permission. But like my heart breaks for like when I have a 24-year-old girl asking me, how did you like convince your parents to let you do this or that? And I'm like, don't stunt your own independence for that. Sometimes it means having a sit-down conversation with your parents and saying, listen, trust that you raised me right. Trust that you did a good job. I'm telling you I'm doing this out of respect, but I'm not asking for permission. And let's be real, our Desi parents are dramatic as hell. They're going to do all the, look beyond that. Because you know what? In a month, when they see that everything's still fine and you're okay, they'll forget about it.
It'll be their idea. And when you think about raising your daughter, she's in a different just environment than you were in growing up. So there's all these considerations as to how to bring her up to be self-confident and to have a strong sense of who she is. How do you sort of approach parenting with that in mind?
We do like a mix of Japanese and French style parenting, which is very much teaching your kids to be independent at a very early age. So, if we go to a restaurant and she wants a cup of water, she's got to go and ask for the cup of water. She has to be the one that asks. And she feels confident to do so. We also see the importance in letting her kind of be outside on her own, or where I'm not hovering around her, which goes against everything in my heart, because in my head, I'm like, someone's going to take her. They're going to take her. Someone's going to kidnap my kid. And then I'm going to have to go full Liam Neeson take in on someone. Like, I get anxious about it. So, like, we go with walkie-talkies. That was a nice middle ground for us. So she can leave the home and she'll walk to, like, the library, which is a little less than a mile away. But the rule is she has to check in every few minutes on the walkie-talkie and let me know when she arrives and when she leaves. And that has helped her confidence so much, because she knows she can be on her own and get around and she'll be okay. But we're there. The current things we're working on is taking feedback. She's doing Kathak right now and she has a performance in a few weeks and she's been practicing, and I'm telling her, hey, Lara, your arms aren't straight when you do your chukkers. You need to fix your arms. I'm doing it the way we were taught. And I'm like, no, I know you're doing it the way, but your arms are not straight. We need to work on that. And I'm like, okay, we need to talk about how we take feedback. Because me growing up, if you let feedback hurt your feelings, I'd be crying all day, every day. Indian parents are extremely critical of everything. Oh, why does your hair look like that? Why are you dressed like that?
Yeah.
Go iron your pants. Go, you know what I mean? And the other thing is being able to take feedback and get better, right? So kind of teaching her those little things here and there and being mindful. Parenting is an actual concept we're considering versus they'll grow up.
If you had to describe you as Hetal now and who you are, what would you say?
I'm a very tell you as it is type of person. If you need a friend to tell you how an outfit looks and be honest about it but not hurt your feelings, I'm that girl. You got a new product and you're testing it and you need honest reviews, I got you. I'm definitely more reliable, a bit more creative, and I'm less reliant on outside noise as a way to define who I am. I don't see how other people's opinions of me shape who I am as a person.
Thank you all for listening to Hetal's episode. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for episode 3 of Sense of Self next week. I'll be speaking with Sumbul Siddiqui, the first female Muslim mayor of Cambridge, Massachusetts, about how she made sense of herself after being bullied at a young age. Please follow us on Instagram and TikTok at senseofself.podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the episodes from Season 2 and to catch up on Season 1 and its companion expert series. You can also learn more and join our email list at our website, www.senseofselfpod.com. This episode was produced by Dr. Gauri Aragam and Janice Vogel. It was mixed by Bree Matan with music from Blue Dot Sessions.